Okay. Hello. This video is about my idea for a new calendar. And I talk about it in my book here called The True Nature of Time. And you're probably sick of seeing me do this by now. But I'm just plugging my book. And in the book, I propose a new calendar. I've always thought the calendar was kind of goofy, even when I was a kid. But I really started to think about it when I was writing this book. And you can go on Amazon, pick up a copy, or you can just read the first chapter for free. And you can also look at the table of contents for free. So that's enough of the book. Oh, by the way, you see how skinny it is, how thin? It's not going to take you a month to read it. Now, let me get my stuff together here. We've all got calendars. We've had them our whole lives. And I read a bunch of stuff before I wrote my book, and there was a guy in 1899 named Moses Cotsworth, and he had an idea for a new calendar, and this calendar had 13 months, just like my calendar does. And he did some kind of goofy things. He took part of July and part of June, I think, and he stuck them together and named this new month Sol, S-O-L, which is name of the sun in Latin. And what else was it he did? Anyway, he made this new calendar kind of annoying in a way, but it was a good idea. And he plugged it to governments. And at the time, they had what they called the League of Nations. I think after World War I, and they were going to solve all the world's problems, which they didn't. But the League of Nations thought his new calendar was a great idea. And they had other people, I think, like the unions, they thought it was a great idea. And all kinds of higher ups in the government thought it was a wonderful idea. But the only people that didn't think it was a good idea was the public. They thought it was a bunch of nonsense. So it just kind of died. And in the book, I tell about the American representative of the United States was named Henry Cabot Lodge. And he wrote a letter to the, it was the United Nations then. He wrote a letter saying that since the American people couldn't care less about it, then the government doesn't either. So we're just not going to have anything to do with this new calendar. So the problem was they were trying to sell it to the government when they should have been trying to sell it to the people, the average person. Now today, in the first quarter of the 21st century, everybody and his grandmother and grandparents and kids all have these little things like this they run around with, and they can see all kinds of information. They could plug a new calendar where people could use it and see the big advantages. Now his idea was a good idea. It was just not presented to the public. And I remember when I was a kid in 1955, when Henry Cabot Lodge wrote this letter, I'd never heard of such a thing in school or from my parents or anything. And but I did hear a lot about the United Nations and how nobody trusted the United Nations. So anyway, like I said today, with all the incredible amount of information available to the public, they could easily learn about it on their computer or their phone, or they could carry around a one of the new calendar on their phone and learn about it. So what would my calendar look like? Well, it would be a 13-month calendar. And the calendar today is just about 4 weeks long, or the months are about 4 weeks long. And February is exactly 4 weeks long. So my proposal, let me see here, would be like this. And every month would look like this forever. The first day of the month would be on Sunday the 1st and end on Saturday the 7th. And the second week of the month would be on the 8th, begin on the 8th and end on the 14th. The third week would begin on the 15th and end on the 21st. And the fourth week would begin on the 22nd and end on the 28th. And every month, all 13 months, would be identical to this. Let me get a pointer here. Now, of course, every month would have a different name, like they do today. Except for December, it would look like this. It would have the last day of the year would be the 29th of December. And I would have it tacked on to the last day of the year. And the 30th day would be, what am I doing? 30th day would be leap day. Now I was thinking of naming these days Sunday, but I don't think we should do that at all. I think they should just be, this day should be just called year-end day. And this day should, of course, just be leap day. And this would only happen every 4 years. And instead of the next year starting on Tuesday, it would start up here. Well, I'm having trouble here. It would start over again on Sunday. Get up there. It would start in again on Sunday the 1st. And this would go on forever. So you would have no partial weeks in a month, ever. Now, the first calendar I would make would look like this. This is just a regular calendar. And, they all have a picture up here of something. In this case, it's cars. Well, the first calendar I would make would have the new calendar at the top. So you could see what it looked like. And you would have the regular calendar on the bottom, just like we do today. And of course, every month would look just like this, except for it would also be February. That way people could compare it to our current calendar. And these little numbers here, well, that number is the day of the year. This calendar here would be February, because up here you have the 29th day of the year, because the January calendar wouldn't have these little numbers because they're identical. And when you get to February, it starts out with these little numbers, which would be the 29th, which comes after 28. And it goes like this all the way through the year. So you can find your birthday or your anniversary or whatever date you want. And then in August, or between August and September, I would stick the new month. And I would combine the two names into one, and I would call it Autumber, which is August and September kind of pushed together. And of course, it would be identical to this. Everything's backward on the screen here when I do this, so I'm kind of struggling with it. So in one of the pictures on the calendar, I'd have to squeeze two of these together. One would be after August, you would have Autumber and September stuck together on the same page. A little smaller version of this. But the final calendar would just be this. It'd be 13 of these. And so once you got used to the numbers falling on a certain day and everything, you'd know every month forever, which is good. And it would, like I said, it would be good for bookkeeping for whoever company or organization that needed a bookkeeper. It would be much simpler. And if you have a certain business practice you tried out, you could compare the two monthly practices to all the other months because they would all be the same amount of time. And okay, let's see. Okay. Oh, here's another odd thing. Near the end of me writing this book, I read an article that NASA has determined that there are actually 13 signs of the zodiac. They said that some ancient civilization, I was going to say Bohemians, but I don't think that's it. Anyway, these people came before the Egyptians even. The people that started not the zodiac, but I must be getting old. I can't think of the name. But anyway, the astrology, that's what I'm trying to think of. The astrologers predict what's going to happen with your life according to the stars. And the astrologers came up with these 12 constellations in the sky. And so there's 12 signs of the zodiac. Well, NASA said that when they first did this, they jammed two of them together to make one sign, so it would be 12 signs, but there are actually 13. It reminds me of the calendar, where they jam 13 months into 12 because 13 is an unlucky number. Can't have that. So anyway, NASA says that this 13th sign of the zodiac is called Ophiuchus. And this constellation is called the Snake Bearer. And which is kind of appropriate because astrologers have been selling this snake oil to people for thousands of years. So the snake bearer is pretty appropriate, I think. So basically, NASA is agreeing with me. And this other guy, Moses Cotsworth, in 1899, he came up with a 13-month calendar. So basically, that's the whole idea. And I go into more detail in my book. But let's see here, see if I've forgotten anything. Well, I think I've mentioned everything. But now when you had 12 months, you had 4 quarters of exactly 3 months. But in this new one, this new calendar, every week would be a full week. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and on to 52 weeks. But like I said, you can number each week of the year. And in 13 weeks, there's that number again. Every 13 weeks would be a quarter. And the first quarter would end here, and I forget which month, but it would end here, and the second one would begin. And I know in July, the third quarter would start, and it would go for 13 weeks. And then the last one I think would be in August or maybe September. I can't remember. But all four of them would be exactly 13 weeks long. So maybe 13 isn't so unlucky after all. I mean, every month would have a Friday the 13th right here forever. And you'd have 13 months forever. And every quarter would last exactly 13 weeks. So 13 just might be our lucky number after all. So that's my proposal. I think it would solve a lot of problems, especially for bookkeepers. And just for the average person, you could remember the days of the month so much easier. So I can't think of anything else to say about it. And like I think I said that already. If you were to run right out and buy my book, there it is. I go into more detail about the whole thing, but it's amazing, really, how much better the calendar would be. When Julius Caesar came up with his calendar, they called it the Julian calendar. It was much more accurate than the one before. And then in 1582, when Pope Gregory reformed that calendar, it was much more accurate still. And it's very accurate today. But this silliness with the months, trying to get rid of that 13th month, is still causing problems. So that's my proposal for a new calendar. So think about it. And I guess that's the end of this episode or video, whatever you want to call it. So see you next time. Bye.